the idea of defund the police, and I understand the premise, okay? And this is once again where many people that say defund the police, they don't mean, hey, just get rid of the police. Of course, there's a fraction of people that are saying defund the police means we don't want any more police anymore. There's a portion of people saying that. There's some people that are saying, well, if we defund the police, we can relocate some of that money and we can do, better schools and we can put money into the infrastructure inside these neighborhoods. But here's the problem. You know what the police need more than anything else? They need money for training. And the way the police departments are set up, they do the most ridiculously minuscule amount of training for what their job is. So, as you know, I was in the SEAL teams. We would train for 18 months. 18 months we would train to go on a 6-month deployment. Cops, they get like 2 hours or 4 hours of combatives training a year. A year. That's complete insanity.
Insanity.
It's complete insanity. The thing I've been saying is cops should train 1/5 of the time. 1/5 of the time you should be training, whether it's 2 hours a day, 4 times a week, or whether it's 1 day a week where you're going to go and you're going to go through scenarios. You're going to do combatives. You're going to work with simunition. You're going to do de-escalation drills because it's really hard. I mean, being a cop I think is the hardest job in the world. And by the way, they're not going to have to worry about defunding the police because no one's going to want to be a cop anymore. Who is going to be fired up to be a cop right now? Who's going to think, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be hated by by a massive portion of the country. I want to be viewed as someone that kills innocent people. The recruiting in cop for police is going to go down so hard. It's going to be ridiculous. And then who are you getting there? You're going to get people that are worse level people, worse level humans are going to show up to be cops. So the training piece, though, they should do very, very scenario-driven training, right? Where you come into a room, and this isn't like super expensive stuff either. You come into a room, there's a person there, they appear to be compliant. You learn how to talk to them. You very quickly learn that instead of yelling them out of the gate, you say, "Hey, man, what's going on? Hey, what's your name? What's going on? We got a call here. Is everything okay?" You just immediately de-escalate. Then you learn what to do when they don't respond the way you want them to respond. Then you learn what to do when they start to do something drastic. What's the best thing for you? And you play through these scenarios. It's just like jiu-jitsu in the fact that what makes jiu-jitsu good? What makes jiu-jitsu good is we can go hard against each other over and over again and not really get hurt, not really get killed. So you get really good at it. That's what you need to do in training for police. You need to go through these tough scenarios over and over again because you do get better at it. You do get better at it. You learn how to mentally detach and not get emotional and realize that there's other things that are happening. When you see the George Floyd case, a couple of the other cops, I think two of the other guys were complete rookies, right? They had been on the force for a very short period of time. No one in that group of 4, obviously you got the killer himself. He's actually conducting the act, but all the other guys are not paying attention. They're all emotional themselves. Hey, stay back. And they're probably watching him saying, why isn't that guy moving? And they're just caught up in it. Whereas if someone would have showed up on the scene or one of those guys had been through some good training in their life, they would have said, what's happening here? Hold on. My partner over there has been on this guy for 2 minutes. He's not moving anymore. I'm going to walk over and say, hey man, let me take over. I got this. Go over there, decompress. This takes training. You have to train people. And I saw this over and over again in the SEAL teams, training guys. You get a young kid that's coming through training for the first time and they go into a room and they're getting shot with simunition bullets or there's someone yelling and screaming or we'd put Arabic women coming walking out of rooms. We'd have people get blown up with wounds. We would do this to them over and over again. So they realize, okay, I just got to relax. I got to take a step back. I got to detach from this situation so I can process what's happening and I can make a good decision because, as I said earlier, no one is making a good decision when they're panicked, when they're freaked out, when they're scared. As a jiu-jitsu guy, when someone puts hands on you, you're not actually scared, right? You're like, oh, okay, I know what to do here. If you don't know jiu-jitsu, if you've never had someone grab you before or you haven't had someone grab you in 17 months or 14 months. No one's laid hands on you because you got a badge and a gun. So people, when you tell them to do something, 95% of the time, they go, okay, yeah, I don't want to get in trouble. But then somebody grabs you. You're instantly, your emotions are spiked, your adrenaline spiked. And the only way to overcome that is through consistent training that happens on a regular basis. You can't just train somebody one time. It's like ring rust. You know, you can't just train somebody one time and, oh, now I don't need to train anymore. No, you need to do continuous training. So that fact right there, if we want to help the police through these situations, we need to invest more money into them. We need to get them better training. We need to pull them out of the field to train and pull them out of the field to decompress. Because you ever done a ride along?
No.
Like whether you're doing a ride along, whether you're going into any situation where you're thinking you could be killed, and even if it's just a remote chance, but you're doing that all the time, and you're seeing on the news, you hear this, your buddy got shot, your buddy got whatever, this other guy got, take his gun taken away. Like that stuff happens. People get killed. I mean, there's been 31 cops killed this year. 31 cops killed this year. And a lot of those, that's not including, like a car accident or COVID. There's been a bunch died of COVID, but just people that have been engaged with bad guys and they got killed. So you're a cop. When another cop gets killed, you're thinking that could be you. So that's your mindset, and that mindset builds, and you're working 10-hour days, and you're working 12-hour days, and there's no training, and there's no breaks. Where do you end up, right? Where do you end up? You end up being a little bit paranoid. You end up being a little bit angry. What happens when you get in a fight with your wife? It's like all these things, you add them together. It's a freaking hard job. And from like an entire systemic way of training and recruiting and keeping police ready to do their job, whatever that job entails. Because let's face it, most of the time that job entails, most of the time it entails, hey, I'm about to go have a bad relationship with another human being. That's what's about to happen, right? Whether I'm pulling you over, whether I've been called to your house because you were yelling and screaming and people heard your wife screaming or whatever. That's what's happening. I'm showing up in a bad relationship. You don't like me and I already don't like you. That's where we start. So we got to train people for that. We also got to train them for all the times that they go in to help people, save people. They're the first people on the scene at car accidents. People are bleeding out. We got to train them for that. And then they have to also be trained for, hey, this is a bad guy this is the guy that you just talked about at a gas station with a weapon that wants to kill a bunch of people. You got to be prepared for that whole spectrum as a police officer. And yet we send them to a 3-month-long police academy, and then we send them out in the street, and that's what they do day in, day out, day in, day out.
It seems to me that they need to be vetted too, much better than they are now, just like the SEALs. Like, you can't get through buds unless you are a superior human being. You have to be able to tolerate a bunch of shit that most people are going to fall apart during. And this seems to me that this is a great way to weed out people that just don't have it.
Yeah, there's one thing that's interesting, just from a physical perspective, most police departments don't even have a minimum physical requirement to continue to be on the force. You have to be at a certain level to graduate from the academies, but oftentimes there's no standard beyond that.
Yeah, I've seen cops before that were like, this is hilarious. Like, what is going to stop someone from closing the distance on you? Like, you ain't getting to that gun.
Yep. But the mental aspect is stuff that you can get better at.
Yes.
You can get better at it, but you only get better at it through training.
Right. And
you only get really comfortable through training a lot. And yet we put these people in these horrible positions over and over and over again, and we don't give them the proper training.
And now there's these politicians that, because of the current social climate, they're encouraged to want to defund the police. That's a great way for them to get brownie points from their constituents. The people want the police defunded, which is it's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. It's so crazy that this is actually gaining steam to the point where in Minneapolis, because they're trying to quiet down the mob, they've actually gone ahead and done it. What the fuck is Minneapolis going to look like in a year from now? It's going to look like Mad Max. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be, criminals will go there to commit crimes. If there's no police there, are you crazy?
By the way, this Jocko energy drink is the shit. It's very legit.